In a small town where life was merciless and dreams were often crushed before they could bloom, lived Ayesha, a young woman whose existence had been shaped entirely by loss, hardship, and relentless struggle. For she had once been a bright-eyed girl with dreams of becoming a teacher, imagining classrooms filled with laughing children and a future she could call her own, yet fate had been cruel, snatching her father when she was only 15 and leaving her to care for a sick mother and a younger brother, thrusting upon her responsibilities far beyond her years. And though she worked tirelessly, sewing clothes, washing dishes, cleaning homes, and selling vegetables on the streets to feed her small family, life refused to give her a moment's respite, finally breaking her entirely when her mother passed away a few years later, leaving her alone, and her brother vanished into the streets, lost to the world and to her forever. And soon after, she discovered she was pregnant from a man who had once promised love, but abandoned her without a thought, calling her a burden and leaving her to face the cruelty of the world alone, where neighbors whispered behind her back, and women who had once smiled now turned away as if misfortune were contagious. Yet amid all this despair came Noor, her daughter, a tiny bundle of light whose innocent laughter and fragile presence gave Ayesha a reason to wake each morning, to fight, to survive. And she devoted every ounce of her strength to giving Noor a life better than her own, enduring hunger, exhaustion, and ridicule without complaint, until one fateful evening at a grand wedding hall, where she scrubbed floors and mopped puddles long after the celebration had ended, she noticed him, Samir, a man who at first seemed like any other worker with worn clothes and hands raw from labor, yet carried a calm, quiet presence that drew her in, his gaze soft, steady, and strangely understanding, and in the fleeting moments they exchanged glances. Something unexplainable stirred inside her, a warmth she had long forgotten, a flicker of hope she did not dare acknowledge, and over the following weeks they began to speak. At first in brief exchanges about work, then gradually sharing stories of hardship, resilience, and the silent dreams that had kept them both alive. And Ayesha found herself opening her heart, sharing her fears, her struggles, and even her deepest longing for safety and love, while Samir listened without judgment, offering comfort in simple words and small acts of kindness. And though she knew it was foolish to hope, she could not ignore the gentle way he looked at Noor, playing with her as if she were his own child, making her laugh after long days of hardship, and slowly, imperceptibly, Ayesha's heart began to soften, daring to imagine a life beyond survival, a life where love might exist, yet society remained merciless, gossiping about her choice, mocking her for daring to smile or feel again, men sneering at Samir for speaking to a woman considered cursed, and women whispering that she had fallen too far. Yet in the quiet moments they shared, none of it mattered, for they had found something rare, something precious, a fragile hope that felt like a secret shield against the cruelty of the world. And then one stormy night, when rain poured relentlessly, flooding the streets and soaking them both to the bone, Samir carried Noor in his arms and walked Ayesha home, the wind whipping around them. And in the midst of that chaos, Ayesha, trembling yet emboldened, looked into his eyes and asked, "Samir, will you marry me?" And he froze, not from shock, but from something deeper. Then slowly, deliberately, nodded and said yes. And in that moment, beneath the harsh glow of the streetlights and the pounding rain, a new chapter of their lives began, quietly, humbly, with no grand celebration, no gold, no flowers, only their hearts intertwining in a bond forged through shared pain and mutual respect. And though she did not yet know it, Samir, the man she had married as a poor cleaner, carried secrets that could shatter her world. And that very night, destiny had already begun writing a story far larger than her imagination, a story that would reveal truths about love, sacrifice, and power she could never have anticipated. And the first hint of that truth would come sooner than she ever expected. Life after their quiet marriage was a strange mixture of peace, warmth, and subtle unease. For while Ayesha had found comfort in Samir's gentle presence, his unwavering support, and the tender love he showed in her life, outside their modest, Home remained merciless, filled with judgment whispers, and a relentless reminder that society had not forgiven her for being a single mother in his days past. She found herself torn between the safety of their small world and the growing curiosity that had begun to take root in her heart. For though Samir seemed ordinary, humble, and devoted, there were moments, small yet undeniable, that hinted at something far greater. Something hidden beneath the exterior he showed to the world, and she noticed it in the way people deferred to him subtly, in the way his words commanded attention even when spoken softly, in the expensive items that seemed to appear mysteriously. In their home, in the envelopes he tucked away carefully before she could see them, and in the way he sometimes disappeared without explanation, returning with a calm smile as if nothing had happened, yet leaving her mind spinning with questions she dared not voice. And though love and trust anchored her heart, curiosity gnawed relentlessly, whispering that Samir's life contained layers of secrets she could not yet fathom, and the tension of not knowing was both thrilling and terrifying. For each day brought subtle signs: the black car that waited for him quietly at the edge of town, the sharply dressed men who bowed slightly in respect whenever he passed, the hushed phone calls he took in another room, and the way he sometimes left the house under the cover of night, only to return with items or gestures too luxurious for the humble life he appeared to lead. And all these small clues combined into a puzzle Ayesha could not ignore, one that promised a truth far beyond what she had imagined, a truth that would change the way she saw her husband, herself, and the fragile family they had built. Yet even as the unease grew, Samir remained the same man she had married, the man who carried Noor on his shoulders, sang to her softly, played peekaboo after long days of work, held Ayesha's hand tenderly, and whispered words of comfort that made her heart feel safe. And it was this paradox that fascinated and tormented her. For the loving, humble man she knew seemed inseparable from the glimpses of authority, power, and hidden wealth she had begun to see, and every day she wondered how one person could live in such extremes without revealing the truth, and why he had chosen to hide this life from her, and what consequences it might bring to her daughter and to their fragile happiness. And then one rainy evening, compelled by equal parts fear and curiosity, she followed him quietly as he left their home, her heart pounding as she trailed at a distance, shielding herself and Noor from the storm, till she saw him slip into a sleek black car with tinted windows, a car unlike anything she'd ever seen in their town. And she watched in disbelief as he spoke briefly to a man in an expensive suit, their conversation hushed but clearly significant. And the moment he emerged from the car moments later, returning with his familiar, gentle smile, Ayesha's mind reeled, for she realized with a shock that the man she had impulsively married, the man she loved and trusted with her life and her child, was living a life she had never imagined, a life of wealth, power, and influence hidden beneath the guise of humble labor. And that night, as she held Noor in her arms, whispering soft prayers, she felt a strange mixture of awe, fear, and anticipation, knowing that her life had already begun to shift in ways she could not control. And in the following days, the subtle hints continued to mount, each more undeniable than the last. From the envelopes arriving without explanation to the people who greeted him with respect in ways she had never seen directed at anyone in their modest community, from the way he handled situations with calm authority to the whispered phone calls that left him silent and composed yet undeniably powerful. And all of this made Ayesha realize that the man she had married carried a secret so vast it could change everything. Yet he remained kind, patient, and devoted in the home they shared. A man of love and humility in their private world, and a man of wealth and influence beyond her understanding in the hidden world he navigated with precision. And though fear and curiosity clawed at her heart, she could not deny the loyalty, the tenderness, and the genuine love that radiated from him in every glance, every touch, and every word of comfort he offered her and Noor. And yet she also understood that sooner or later, the hidden truth could not remain concealed. That destiny would reveal the life he had built in secret, the power he wielded, and the reason he had hidden it all. And with every passing day, the tension built, a storm quietly gathering. For Ayesha sensed that the moment of revelation was approaching, the moment when she would have to reconcile the man she knew with the man he truly was. And as she watched Samir interact with the world, beyond their home, composed, commanding respect, and leaving traces of wealth and authority in subtle gestures, her heart pounded with the knowledge that their life and the fragile world she had built for Noor were about to change forever. And though fear gripped her, an undeniable thrill accompanied it. For she realized that the man she had married as a simple cleaner was not just her protector and the father of her child, but a man whose hidden life could alter their destinies entirely. And she understood in the depths of her heart that when the truth finally emerged, it would bring challenges, dangers, and wonders beyond anything she had imagined. And as she held Noor close that night, whispering soft lullabies and prayers into her daughter's ear, she silently vowed to face whatever came with courage, knowing that the life they had begun together, however humble and simple it seemed, was only the beginning of a story far greater, far more extraordinary, and far more dangerous than she had ever dreamed. And she also knew that soon, very soon, Samir's secret life, the life of power, wealth, and influence hidden beneath his humble exterior, would be revealed. And nothing in their world would ever be the same again. And in the quiet of the night, with rain tapping softly against the windows, Ayesha felt both fear and hope intertwine in her heart. For she knew the day of revelation was approaching, and with it, a destiny that would test their love, their trust, and the future of Noor in ways she could not yet imagine. And yet, despite the unknown, she closed her eyes, held her daughter tightly, and whispered to herself that no matter what came, she would face it with courage. For the life they shared, the love they held, and the bond between mother, daughter, and husband would carry them through even the most unimaginable revelations. And as the storm outside raged on, she felt the first shiver of destiny, knowing that their quiet, humble life was about to be swept into a whirlwind of secrets, power, and truth, and that tomorrow would bring the first step into a world she had never dreamed existed. A world where Samir, the man she had married as a simple cleaner, would reveal the astonishing reality of who he really was. The morning sunlight streamed through the small windows of their modest home, casting a golden glow on Noor's sleeping face, and for a brief moment, Ayesha allowed herself to believe that life might continue in this fragile peace. Yet even as she brewed tea and arranged a simple breakfast, her heart pounded with anticipation and dread. For she knew that Samir's secret life, the life she had only glimpsed in fragments, mysterious letters, unmarked envelopes, sleek black cars, and deferential strangers, was on the verge of revelation. And that today, everything would change. And it began subtly, with a phone call, crisp and urgent, from a voice she did not recognize, yet which Samir answered with a calm authority that made her stomach tighten, a voice belonging to someone far above the ordinary world, someone used to being obeyed without question. And she watched as he straightened his posture, his expression shifting from the tender husband she knew to a man commanding respect, authority, and power that seemed almost untouchable. And though he returned moments later with the same gentle smile, the weight of importance in his every gesture was undeniable, and it left her breathless, heart racing, mind spinning with questions she could not yet answer. And then, as Noor played innocently with her toys, Samir took Ayesha by the hand, his eyes soft but serious, told her they needed to leave, that there was something important she had to see. And though she hesitated, sensing the gravity in his tone, she followed, clutching Noor to her chest. As they walked through the quiet streets to a waiting black car that gleamed like polished obsidian, a vehicle unlike anything she had ever imagined in their small town. And when Samir opened the door, he helped her in. And as the car glided smoothly along the roads, he remained silent, his hands firm on the wheel, his expression unreadable. And Ayesha's mind raced, imagining every possible scenario, from danger to revelation. And yet her heart clung to the trust she had always held, trusting that the man she loved was still the same man who had held her hand through grief, protected her from hardship, and loved her daughter with a tenderness that had saved her life. And as the car approached the city center, towering skyscrapers loomed into view, buildings of glass and steel that seemed to pierce the clouds, and Ayesha felt a shiver of awe and fear, for this world was far removed from the modest streets she had always known. And the realization struck her with force. This was the world Samir moved in. The world of the man she had married without knowing his true identity. And when the car finally stopped in front of a massive building with a polished marble facade and a security detail that nodded respectfully at Samir, her breath caught, her hands trembling around Noor. And Samir turned to her with a soft smile, saying quietly, "Welcome to my world." And at that moment, Ayesha understood everything she had only sensed in fragments. The luxury, the respect, the hidden strength, all revealing the truth she had never expected. Samir was not just a man of humble labor. He was a billionaire, the owner of vast companies, a man whose influence and wealth extended far beyond her imagination. And as she stepped into the grand lobby, her eyes wide with awe, she saw assistants rushing with poised efficiency screens, displaying stock markets and a sense of power that was overwhelming yet captivating. And she turned to Samir, whose smile was now warm, confident, and proud, yet still tender in the way he looked at her and Noor. And she realized that the man who had been her anchor in hardship, her protector, and the devoted father of her child, was the very same man who commanded entire industries, who had hidden his identity out of love, humility, or perhaps fear that revealing it too soon would change the delicate world they were building. And in that moment, all the questions, all the doubts, all the suspicion she had harbored melted into a mixture of awe, relief, and a joy she could not contain, for her husband had always been extraordinary. But now she could see just how vast his world truly was. And as they were guided to a private office with glass walls that overlooked the city skyline, Samir knelt slightly, lifting Noor so she could see the city spread like a jewel below, and whispered to her, "This is your father's world too." And Ayesha's heart swelled with emotion, realizing that her daughter would never want for anything, that the man she had impulsively married was not only a loving father, but also someone capable of providing a life of security, comfort, and opportunities beyond imagination. And as she looked at Samir, she saw the humility in his eyes, the same gentle soul who had held her hand in hardship, now paired with the strength of a man who could move mountains, and tears streamed down her face, not from shock, but from a profound understanding that destiny had led her here, that the man she had chosen out of love and trust had been exactly who he was meant to be. And the moment felt surreal, cinematic, almost too perfect for reality. And then Samir took her hands in his voice low and steady. "I wanted you to know me for who I am here, for who I am with you, not for what I have." And Ayesha realized the depth of his love, that everything he had concealed was out of respect for their world together, and that no matter the wealth, the power, or the influence, his heart had always been hers and Noor's, and that was what mattered most. And as she embraced him, holding him close, she felt a weight lift from her soul for the man she had married. As a humble cleaner had not only been her partner in love and life, but also her guide into a destiny she could never have imagined. And as they stood together, overlooking the city, Ayesha felt a surge of pride, love, and gratitude for the man who had once seemed ordinary had proven to be extraordinary. A billionaire whose true richness lay not in money, but in love, loyalty, and the family he cherished above all else. And with that, the story of hardship, secrecy, and love reached a powerful turning point. For now, nothing could shake the bond they had forged. And though the world would continue to whisper and judge, Ayesha knew that they had survived the harshest tests, faced the greatest revelations, and emerged stronger, united, and ready to embrace the extraordinary life destiny had written for them. And as Samir held both Noor and Ayesha close, whispering softly promises of protection, love, and a future together, she finally understood that sometimes the most unexpected choices made from the heart in moments of impulsive courage could lead to a destiny far beyond imagination, a life filled with love, respect, and unimaginable surprises. And in that moment, every hardship, every tear, every lonely night, and every whispered judgment from the world melted away, leaving only the profound, unshakable truth that she had married the man she was always meant to. The man who was not only the father of her child, but also a billionaire whose heart had always belonged to her. And as they stood together in the golden morning light, overlooking the world that was now theirs to navigate together, Ayesha felt a peace she had never known, a joy so complete that it erased every shadow of doubt. And she whispered to herself, to Noor, and to the universe that no matter what came next, their love, their family, and their bond would remain unbroken, stronger than any secret, more powerful than any fortune, and the life they had built through struggle and trust. It finally reached the extraordinary conclusion it was always meant to have.